She is interested in discussing what Jean-Luc Nancy referred to as the inoperative community, whereby there's parent groups instead of just mother and baby groups. This idea of inclusion beginning in the community. Activism theorist Martha Axelberg talked over these similar ideas with the artist around self-identifying, and she was particularly interested in what Axelberg referred to as the own gender marriage laws, being a further disempowerment to single mothers, the emphasis being on wholesome family units. When the law of civil unity becomes a recognizable power, then we're starting to create other instead of together. When platforming mother, woman, black, queer, the actor, the artist, the rapist, the murderer, she's opening up a discussion around culture and crime and culture and criticism as one and the same thing. Once a month, the people should be allowed to visit convicts in their mournful cells. They will read the name of the convict, his crime and his sentence. Let us conceive as the guardian of the laws that families would visit on Sundays, a living lesson in the Museum of Order.
If I can't dance, then it's not my revolution. Genet and Sartre observe and serve in their work, not the nobleman, but the criminal. The art of folk, nature, Druidism, urban myths, embroidery, like ancient silent monologues of the land, my performance, the museum and the artist, conjures up the freedom of the drifter, the museum of the bourgeoisie. Imprisoned, left like ghost lands, ghost houses like the housing plans all over Ireland. And I call this field filtering, filtering into the landscape, into nature, into nothingness, where we cackle and drag on telling fortunes, giving birth, and leaving imprints and residues of skin and bone. Ivan Illich talks about these subjects in his Deschooling Society. He says schooling is discriminatory, socially divisive, and profoundly inegalitarian. Art museums, like public schools, may function to foster a material impoverishment of the cultural practices they exclude. In the mid-19th century, most immigrant Irish attending public school in America were charged an extra public school tax. There was hidden costs and hidden prejudices.
Is this work autobiographical? How does one move out of the studio and become interested in criminals?
She is interested in subjects that affect her, whether directly or indirectly. I refer to her work in the Mother series. I'll stop making work about women when they stop being fired for being pregnant. In When Abortion is Outlawed, she recently took an image of 19 girls from her university wearing t-shirts saying, "I have my periods." In one of these images, she's holding a parcel containing an illegal home abortion kit.
So we'd call her a feminist.
If being a woman and making art is feminism, then I'm a feminist. I also refer to my work as Dadaism, Surrealism, Situationism, feminism, autism, and many form of isms in art. I think if we're still being gendered and inequality still exists, then feminism is a label that suits.
Louise Bourgeois, who this artist mentioned earlier, what would this artist have in common with Bourgeois, who makes rather large sculptural objects, which this artist does not?
My father is a baker.
Who's got the bread?
Genealogical confronting of where one comes from in language one speaks, the deconstruction of working class. If we are working for someone, then we are all of a class that works. I'm not a documentary maker or a politician. I can only bring a subject alive by having an interest and an idea. My work comes from an overt, visceral, emotive position. I like Louise Bourgeois' early drawings around women's periods, same as Sylvia Plath's poetry, where the narrative is lyrical and trauma becomes parallel to the work. I'm interested in the artist demanding the viewer to question his or her own position in relation to marginality and its subjectivity. The artist likes this. Exhibit A, Part B, conversation for practice, practice, overrides the... I'm interested in Jean Baudelaire's discussion of violence and the violence to the image itself, the violence of public art and the violence of humanism. Whereas in everything, as there's a contradiction, I feel my work lies with the responsibility as an artist to discuss injustice, and through seeking truth, then we discover injustice. It is Louise Bourgeois who said, it is the very existence of fiction that makes truth possible, an instinct to create order, to escape panic. If that subversive lies with what we consider to be the rules in the first place.
What rules?
The rules of anything. Systems, society, communication, institutions. What Andrea Fraser knows and speaks about when she stands in the museum and opens her tour in Lower Dublin, downtown Philadelphia, or Lower Dublin here, the beautiful museums, the municipals, the free galleries. and the beautiful gardens of St. Michael's, St. James, and St. John of God's, the mental hospitals. The Bernardos and municipals, such as Focus and Ruhama and Women's Aid for beaten women and prostitutes. The Ashley in a centre, a museum for the industrial schools, and the Simon community for the homeless. And St. Francis, saint, saint, saint.
The institution has the power to protect. Now, you mentioned earlier that this artist had an interest in the Gothic of 1800s, vampire, sex, death, fantasy. Isn't most performance art sexual and ritualistic?
If you say so. I refer to blood red, as in the birth symbols in Anonymum, or labour in human error, in labour and slave labour. The Gothic of woman power, sexual, supernatural, assertive. I refer to the new Gothic as having the embellishment effect in fiction, but it is the truth, the ordinary and the everyday that makes it a new Gothic. So issues such as women's rights, workers' rights and disability rights can be addressed. It has to have a cathartic effect, a subject the artist can identify with. So using moving image, performance and storytelling, we can look at subjects such as socially and mentally defunct women. I like to use poetic text, heightened colour, and mysticism, power, unpower, society, and other contemporary references, where porn, death, and fetishism can also be ordinary if we talk about them. Impact equals intellect, impact equals visual.
She is influenced by her immediate environment, such as home, the everyday, motherhood. Death can be banal, car crashes, murder, head injuries, miscarriages. It is the outsider and the vulnerability of human form where she feels most comfortable. The vagueness of her existence, this hybrid of social terrain, of class, and righteousness, and conditions.
Can you convey how this might be of interest to the public, to the excluded audience, if one is not aware of performance art and its history and lingo, if you like?
In Asma, Amanda and Hitchcock, one element is about attack on one socially, victims, paranoia, universal subjects, ethereal qualities beyond one's control. We see this in the film Birds, attack on one socially. Hitchcock makes these comments by using animals. Animals are a metaphor for our misuse of them, eating them. On the other hand, you've got things not in your control.
In my rage, my earth beams, my planet fear, my primal scream, inseparable injustice. Religion is our father, my father, squeezing the life out of me. Moses in the background. Oh, dirt, blood, crevice, the food fell. Fell out of my palm, out the door through several hundred windows. Oh, honour thy father is thy lung, the left one asthmatic, inflamed, steroid, overused lung, sobbing under the dissolved song.